Josh, could you get into some examples of some of the complex engineering problems that are off-the-shelf solutions fail to solve, and how does that custom engineering open up possibilities that our typical tools can't usually solve?
Fortunately, we've already solved a lot of problems as people, and we have a lot of machines and a lot of solutions. But what I tell people is there's a lot of companies that can make things with Legos, but what do you do when you can't find the Legos, when there's no Lego that exists for this particular thing that you're trying to do? And so that's where.
What's it like to work on a research and development project? How do you manage an engineering team and stay on budget? In this episode, we're joined by Josh Tarbutton, PhD, PE, and founder of Bravo Team, a premier engineering firm specializing in custom machine design, automation, and advanced research and development, to talk about why off-the-shelf solutions often fall short, how to build machines that don't exist yet, and what it really takes to turn underperforming engineering teams into high-impact problem solvers. If you're a structural engineer looking to deliver better results and drive real innovation, this conversation is packed with practical insights you can apply right away.
Before we jump in, I wanted to tell you about our AEC PM Connect event, designed for structural engineers who want to lead more effectively, with sessions on AI and project management, earned value tracking, and people leadership. Visit aecpmconnect.com and register today. We currently have events in Kansas City and New Jersey, with one more coming up. I am your co-host, Alex Data.
And I'm your co-host, Matt Picardal, and this is the Structural Engineering Channel.
Josh, can you share a bit about yourself and your current role as CEO of Bravo Team, where you focus on custom machine design and advanced R&D?
Yes. So incidentally, between the time that we scheduled this podcast and had this podcast, my role has changed a little bit. Been able to move into more of a founder and chairman role, and promoted Tom, who was our chief growth officer, to the role of CEO. So he's actually doing that. And so my role, though, has basically been on helping to connect customers with solutions. And so kind of the guy who's out there and, doing the lead generation, and then helping to scope the work, and then trying to make sure that the work lands appropriately at the right time with the right resources and all that stuff. But when we first started, my role was everything. So we bootstrapped it with $0 and 0 cents and one customer. And so, I had to do all the bookkeeping, all the sales, and, all the stuff that small business owners end up doing. So now my role is more in grooming and nurturing some of the work that we do, maybe working on some of the harder problems, and engaging with new customers and helping scope the work.
Awesome. And could you explain a little bit about what you guys do at Bravo Team?
Yeah, so we are an innovation partner at the core. We help other companies, mostly other engineers, with open-ended design problems. We have over 30 engineers, 22 mechanical, 8 computer and electrical, and we have 5 machinists and fabricators / welders. And what we do is we basically are designers and innovators for hire for our customers that bring us challenging design problems. Now, these are usually often automation problems or machine design problems, but we also do some product development, some PCB design, some firmware development, app development. Most of the work that we do is very hardware focused in the solutions. So we're pretty much just like solving design and engineering problems that are related often to a product or to a manufacturing process.
Yeah, Josh, could you get into some examples of some of the complex engineering problems that are that off-the-shelf solutions fail to solve, and how does that custom engineering open up possibilities that our typical tools can't usually solve?
Yeah. So fortunately, we've already solved a lot of problems as people, and we have a lot of machines and a lot of solutions. But what I tell people is, there's a lot of companies that can make things with Legos, but what do you do when you can't find the Legos? When there's no Lego that exists for this particular thing that you're trying to do. And so that's where, basically if you're searching for something and can't find it, then we're the people that can create it. Those are often, manufacturing has a lot of examples where you might have a new process, or maybe, a new product that's been designed, and, your tooling or your line can't support it the same way that it did, the earlier generation design. And so you just have to do some tooling modifications, or maybe you have to add an additional test to this new, product because it has additional features. We want to make sure that those features are 100% tested in process, so that maybe we'll do like an inline tester or an end of line tester for validation. We have our own product that we invented, which is the Bravo Walk. It's a dog collar that trains your dog not to pull on a leash. We invented other consumer products that you'd recommend. Unfortunately, most of our customers don't allow us to tell us that we helped them. And so we have things out there that you might recognize, but we can't take credit for it. So, the general solution is just when there's an open-ended problem, somebody needs something, they can't find an easy solution, giving us a call is usually a pathway for people to get what they want.
I love the reference to Legos. That's going to strike home with every engineer. But we, kind of face that on the structural engineering side, especially with my work. I mean, we kind of produce those Legos for buildings. But if you run into quite a few different processes, or back even when I was consulting, quite a few situations where there's just not a part off the shelf that works. So I guess I appreciate what you do.
Strong project outcomes need skilled managers and competent leaders. EMI's corporate training delivers expert-led courses in project management and people leadership, plus industry-recognized certification and exclusive premium content to take your team even further. Elevate your team's leadership capabilities today. Visit engineeringmanagementinstitute.org and click on corporate training.
When you're designing machines that don't exist yet, how do you balance bold innovation with the practical challenges of sustaining R&D over time, especially when you're under a time constraint or a budget pressure?
Yeah, that's a hard question. So balancing the budget and the innovation and predicting it and then getting it delivered on time, it's what we do, and it's not easy. So how do we do it? I think bold innovation has to be shared with the customer, and a lot of this depends on the customer and the trust in the relationship. And so if we have a customer that the need is very important and the trust is very high, then we have pretty big, I guess, war chest, if you would, to explore. We try to be very good students of the design process, and that just kind of means that, you can't get too committed, too early. You got to pull your head out of the sand and look around, and you got to be disciplined and do all your benchmarking. And it's probably not a bad idea, depending on the project, to see what the universities are putting out, in North America and abroad, and get a feel for the IP landscape. Got back from a MSEC and NAMREC conference and last week. So putting eyes on what people are doing, be aware of sort of the general innovations in certain areas. So I guess, one way we do it is by being aware of what's out there. The other way is by having a very cross-disciplinary team. And so we have over the 30 engineers. We have core hours, so we don't do remote work. At Bravo team, everybody's here from 9 to 3. All the engineers are W-2 employees, and so we pretty much are boots on the ground. We show up all day, every day in the work together, and try to really focus on, what is that innovation? What is this customer asking for? So if they're asking for, innovation, and they're asking, and it's key to their business, then they'll usually have some risk profile associated with it. And so it's hard to give an answer for all the cases. I would just say, like, for all the cases, we try to be very good stewards of the customer's time and money and their trust by, kind of communicating where we are in the process, where we need to get to complete this process, the level of effort. And so it's a challenging thing to do. The design process is a beautiful process. And I think, no one gets it right, but the more we aspire to be good students of it, it can inform the decision-making as a function of time against that particular project's constraints and objectives. So I'd say every one is a very unique case, but managing the time and budget and the pressures is a lot of it has to do with just be very, very explicit in the communication, making sure that you and the customer are 100% aligned, and that anything you try is time boxed and we know that what we're going to get out. So if we decide to do a little bit of research, research should lead to answers. And so, like, what question are we trying to answer, and what's the sort of minimum level of effort required to get to that answer? And sometimes you can create a scaled system. Sometimes you can extrapolate an answer from that somebody else has gotten to get reasonable confidence. So we try to accelerate the development by building confidence, but really it's a hand-in-hand walk with the customer to try to help get them what they need.
Yeah, it seems like, as a follow-up to that one, it seems like a lot of the projects, since they're really custom, but I think that would, as an engineer, that seems kind of like the ideal problem-solving environment where ideally it looks like the clients know that if it's more custom, it's probably gonna, cost more. You got to do some research, and if they're on board with that, cool. Then you would, do the research, figure out how to solve this problem that no one's probably ever done before. Is that how it kind of, I guess, in terms of the custom solutions, is that kind of how the problem solving works in terms of the environment? It seems pretty cool as an engineer to go through those custom solutions.
We have a lot of fun here, and but also it's also where your identity is, challenged. It's like, hey, we're hiring you to do this thing that nobody's done, and there's nothing else out there, and you're telling us you can do it, and we say, yeah, we can do it. And so, but of course, I mean, you have to do it. You definitely feel that you're putting yourself out there, but I also think that's where the magic happens, and so you have to have people. So, when we hire, we try to be real careful to find people that are comfortable kind of sitting in the eye of the storm, sitting in the eye of the design uncertainty, and being okay with, putting a whole day in and not getting anywhere, sleeping on it and being willing to come back the next day. And, with engineering and design and hardware and some of these challenging problems, I mean, they'll kick your teeth in, laugh at you while you're gushing blood out of your mouth and tell you to swallow them. It's hardware is, it's unforgiving. It's ruthless. But same thing with structural engineering. I think, structural engineers is kind of like the scary part of engineering for a lot of engineers, where you're making stuff where if it breaks, the likelihood of somebody getting hurt is very high, and the likelihood of it costing an awful lot of money is very high. And we go through our careers, and we assume more and more responsibility. And I think part of it is being trained, and part of it is having people that are competent, people that are unafraid, and they know that what the best practices, they know like what the good design exemplars are, where they can be informed by them and following good practice, and always being open and willing to get input from other people. We very much rely on each other at Bravo Team. We like to be vulnerable. We like to have other people looking at our designs. We like to have feedback, because we believe that at the end of the day, we're protecting each other, and we're protecting the customer by, making sure that everything is very open, very, very, very open design process with invitation for support. And if we get it right, which we aspire to do, then it can be a lot of fun. But like any design project, the harder ones, you get to experience all the emotions, fear, terror, but then, the joy and the exhilaration of getting a project across the finish line, seeing a happy customer. It's like you almost forget every single time all the torture that you experienced in the middle of it. And I just think, the design process is where it happens for putting yourself out there as a design engineer, and it can be an awful lot of fun if you have the right support.
Yeah, those challenging projects, kind of that cycle where everyone's good parts of the project, but then you're going to have those, oh man, this is a tough project. But then, yeah, at the end of it, everyone that's involved in the projects that's making it work. Same thing with building, design, structural engineering. I think engineering in general, when that project gets successful, everyone can see it. And I think for the most part, if it's a successful project, everyone will be like, yeah, that was worth it. It was worth it to go through all this struggle. I wanted to talk about in terms of automation. Can you talk more about that? From your perspective, what have you seen works, what doesn't work, and what's coming in the future in terms of automation?
Well, I'd say we have an awful lot of things to choose from now, more now than we ever did before. There's more companies making controllers. There's more companies creating entire product families for automation. If you go back in history, we started out with a bunch of relay logic, and then, the relay logic got us pretty far. And then we realized that we don't need all these relays. We can just use a programmable logic controller, and we got rid of a lot of hardware and had these smart PLCs. And then we added a bunch of IO to them. We added a bunch of communication protocols. And now we're kind of in a place, from where I see where there's a landscape in the controls where you have maybe you have your top 3 or 4 companies that are dominating most of the market. But unfortunately, you don't have a labor force that is capable of getting in and easily modifying control systems. So, one big trend I see in automation is there's a lot of effort that's being put into making the controllers a lot easier to communicate with and program. I still think we have a very long way to go there, but I do think that the future is there's a good portion of the market, I think, that's going to belong to the people that make the controls and automation a lot more accessible to the people in the plants that are actually running them. I think there's still a lot of pain there that we end up helping companies sort of solve. I also think that the hardware landscape is going to continue to change in terms of the cost going down. You're also going to see more and more integration in higher performing controllers and integrated HMIs. You see now there's a lot more, wireless interfaces between machines, and there's a move towards standardization of, or more and more of the machines moving to a standard. But in manufacturing, you also have this sort of legacy problem where, your machines that you install, you spend a lot of capital on, millions of dollars. You're not going to go in there and change the controls, every couple of years. You're going to leave the machine be. So we have this other issue of, you have probably a 10 to 20 year, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter life cycle on big industrial equipment. And so you have, plants, and if you have big plants, and you have a life cycle of controllers and that goes over time, then, the changes that are going to happen, I think, are going to be like hybrid for a while, but we will see more and more standardization in that space. Kind of like, our USB cables. We had micro USB, USB-A, USB-C. We had these. Now we're somewhat better, but now we have all these. Everybody has all these cords left over in their house. I think you're going to see something very similar with automation. As far as, I'll stop there for the long answer, but that just kind of deals, I think, with the controls sort of perspective of automation. There's a lot of other ways to look at it as well. But I'll pause there and see if there's any part of the automation that you want me to elaborate more on.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask specifically what's coming next. Do you see everything moving more wireless integration, or I guess I don't know enough to even know where to go with that question, but what is coming next?
Yeah, I think for automation, I think what's coming next is I think you're going to see that I really think it has a lot to do with the way that the labor force interacts with the technology. I feel like the future factories will have automation tools that are much more integrated and much more hot swappable and much easier to do, but we're a long way from that. I think there's still probably 20 or 30 years of pain, between here and having something that really is streamlined, because, kind of the way that I think about it is you think about automation, you sort of have your individual machine cell and your individual like machine controller. And then you kind of have your distributed automation where you have a couple machines, and then you have your whole plant automation and your supervisory controls systems on the whole plant. And because of the infrastructure is dominated by a few key players, I don't see that that's going to change, an awful lot. So it'll be kind of interesting to see as tools are released, how those tools empower the people in the factories to take more ownership. You're also seeing right now that the software licenses that used to be, thousands of dollars are now being given away for free on some of the platforms. And so it's kind of like the wild, wild west in a way. I think there's still we're still in this big transition period as far as the hardware goes. As far as automation in general, we're seeing a lot of more automatically guided vehicles, a lot of more automation in the workflows. You're going to see AI is going to compress steps. If you think in terms of the theory of constraints, what right now is preventing more companies from bringing automation into their factories is often associated with budgets and labor. And those budgets are largely driven by the hardware costs. So I do think as the hardware costs come down, you are going to see, automation become more ubiquitous, but it also has to go hand in hand with the labor being able to use that hardware. So I do think the tools are going to be easier to use. I think the hardware is going to be more accessible, but I do think we do have some time to go before that's easy. That's my opinion.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. I mean, it sounds like, well, one, there's a transition that needs to happen with the old hardware that you're kind of working out of the work cycle, I guess, or waiting for new stuff to come in. But I would think there's quite a bit of a gap with people catching up as well. I mean, we're just at the cusp of AI and people are playing with it, but not a lot of people know how to implement it or what to use, what it's good at. So I think having that right team involved, and it sounds like you've done a good job at your place setting up a diverse team. That's going to play a big effect, and maybe just generationally, people growing up around automation will have better understanding of how it could be used.
Without a doubt.
So I want to transition to a little bit more about your team. You've built and turned around both academic and industrial teams. So what core strategies do you use to build high-impact engineering teams that actually solve real-world problems?
I think, being honest about what you're doing and honest about what you need is the place to start for us. And that is, being very explicit about what the job is. And so when we first started, I assumed a lot and made some mistakes, a lot of mistakes in how we hired. And I made some pretty bad assumptions about people when I first started, assuming really that more people were like me. I think it's a pretty easy thing for us to do when we wake up in the morning. We think other people are similar to us. So we've been able to build a very strong team by being very explicit about what the job is. We run Traction. We run EOS, which is the Entrepreneur Operating System. It's a way of managing your business based upon the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And that's given us a lot of clarity. It's basically a way of driving your business on the vision. There's a lot of tools out there to do similar things. And one of the parts of Traction is GWC, which is you want to make sure everybody gets it, they want it, and they have the capacity to do it. So, we make sure everybody gets the job. Hey, this is the job. This is the job description, that they want the job, and unfortunately, when you're interviewing people, people are trying to leave their current job. Most people want the job, until they get the job and realize maybe this is, not the job that they wanted. So we try to just be really explicit about what the job is, and then having the capacity to do it. And that's where, we're a little slower than we were before. We had a longer process. And so current process is, we'll solicit resumes from Indeed or wherever, LinkedIn, mostly Indeed. Then we'll process them, we'll schedule them for an initial interview, follow-up interview with different team members, then an on-site interview. And then we have the people that they're going to be working with, interview them, often share a meal. And then we all put our heads together and try to make sure and see if this person is going to be a good fit for the team, the culture, and the work that we're going to do. So by slowing down, we've been able to hit those hires a lot better. And when you're just really honest about the work, people self-elect whether they want to do it or not, because we're doing open-ended design. Not everybody is comfortable being in that space. And then we also give different assessments like the Working Genius to try to build teams that are aware of each other's strengths and can really lean into each other's strengths. And then we have very explicit communication rhythms internally and externally to kind of try to help facilitate it. But beyond all that is to give people meaningful work that they are empowered and capable of doing, and then making sure that they can, earn a very high quality wage, and that they can have a good week, that they can be successful. And I think, one of the things that I learned in the Army is that you always try to set your soldiers up for success, and as a leader, if there's things you could have done to make life easier or better, for your subordinates, then you have a responsibility to do that. So these are just some of the things. So being real careful for hiring, making sure we're real explicit about what the job is, making sure that the person is going to be a good fit on the team, and then really, really setting up for success, trying to, make sure that they have everything they need to be successful once they start. And when we get it right, people end up having a really good experience. They end up learning a lot. And I've heard, many times people, when they come here, they say it's very refreshing to work here, because we just assume that people are, hardworking individuals that are going to come to work and do their best. And if they need any help, it's just because they need help. And we should all help each other. Try to keep it pretty chill. Try to keep it pretty safe, psychologically safe, so that people can lean on each other to do their best work.
Yeah, that goes past the normal work-life balance mentality. It starts to make sure you maintain motivation. People are understanding exactly what is expected of them and what their day is going to look like, so they get a greater job satisfaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh, for research and development projects, I'd imagine they start off with a lot of momentum. You're learning a new problem, you're figuring it out, but then I imagine there's going to be some times where you're going to hit a roadblock, like you're doing research and then, this doesn't seem to be going well. What are some of the systems that you and your team have developed, or tactics that help you, to keep it going, keep it alive, even when timeline, budgets, and all of these things are keeping pressure on it?
It's good question. Well, Einstein said the secret to genius is to hide your resources. So I'm not going to listen to him. I'll just tell you. Being in academia, I was a tenured professor for 9 years. So I do have quite a bit of contacts and friends. So if I get stuck, the chances of me being able to pick up a phone and call the guy who wrote the book is pretty high. So we do ask for help from our network. Try to be honest about, what do we know? What do we not know? Going through the academic cycle myself, getting my bachelor's, master's, PhD, postdoc, and then teaching for 9 years, and doing $18 million of funded research and publishing 60 papers. Like, I figured I was trained in the process of reducing uncertainty in technically challenging projects. And so, one way that we try to, keep our motivation, especially when things are a little hard, is being very explicit about, where are we, what information do we need, and what is our pathway to get there? What is our and then you just kind of get into these mini scientific process loops where, it's like, what's our hypothesis? How are we going to test it? How do we know we're done? What's the definition of done? So I would say, not allowing that fear to just rob you of your capacity to act. And so a lot of it is just okay, here where you are, what are the next actions? And they're very, it's very rare that we don't have an obvious next action. Where we do feel pressure is, if we didn't budget enough time, because the open-ended design projects, we're trying to predict the future. And I've never been 100% accurate at predicting the future. I don't know anybody that has, the weatherman has a lot of data, but he and a lot of technology, but even this guy doesn't even get it right for, or girl, tomorrow for the next day. So I do think, getting it right is challenging, but that is what we're doing. But being honest about it is like, hey guys, we are predicting the future. I mean, customers should know that, what we're designing doesn't exist yet. So a lot of it has to do with like, is the customer a sane customer? Are they, reasonable? Do they have enough money to answer the question? And it feels weird sometimes, right? Because you might blow through, $80,000 to get an answer to something, and is it worth it? I don't know. It depends on the problem, but sometimes when you blow through some money, and then you realize that you could go out and buy a brand new BMW for $60,000, and it has pretty advanced technology in it. If you don't have the right customer, sometimes they're confused about the economics of it all. So that's a big part of it, is making sure the customers understand the NRE costs, the non-recurring engineering costs, to design something, one time. And then, so those are the two main things, like, following a good process, making sure we have, resources, making sure we're very proactive to take the next step, in the projects when they do get challenging. And then the next thing is just really making sure like that we're on the same page with the customer, and that we're all in it together. We're all moving forward together. And I just think when you're honest, you have really, intelligent people that are asking the right questions, and they're letting you know how they're going to answer them. Then we're able to build a lot of, confidence and answer all the questions. And we've never had a project that we have not been able to complete that we have, chosen to complete so far. So
Yeah.
It's challenging. It's very challenging.
Yeah, that makes sense in terms of making sure there's some type of game plan where if we hit a road bump, here's what we're going to do. And I think what you said too about the customer being informed, so that they're on the same page with you. It's not just like, oh, didn't go as planned. Well, how come? Why not? Well, they're on the same page. They know what the possibilities are and what steps are next in case something doesn't go as planned. And yeah, and of course with the budget too, of them knowing that there's a sort of uncertainty there, but they're willing to take that as well in terms of the overall project scope and budget.
But most people are reasonable. Most people, everybody wants the same thing. Everybody usually wants the same thing. Everybody wants the project to be successful. Nobody wants to lose money, so much of it is communication.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that there's a very explicit cadence of communication, which I'm sure helps quite a bit with managing your customers' expectations. But does that process really start conversation one? And what does that look like kind of throughout? I assume you go over budget and pick it up a little bit.
So any project we kick off is we try to have project kickoff, project scoping. We spend a lot of money on our end to scope the project. We have not figured out a way to monetize that part of it yet. So if any of your listeners are out there, please let us know. But the nature of the work is, customer will come to us. Often there's more than one of us. And so they want to know how we're going to solve it. So a good customer, they will kind of listen to us and compare it. But there are people out there that will take your proposals, and you kind of are telling them how to solve the problem. They might try to solve it themselves, which is obviously their prerogative, or use your proposal and everybody else's proposals against each other to try to optimize it. We prefer to work with customers that are a little bit more interested in a long-term relationship than just maximizing their budget. But the reality is, across the board, a lot of us have been squeezed, with COVID and inflation. The service provider and engineering consultant, our rates have been compressed over the last 3 to 5 years. And so it's challenging. Which makes the project risk go up, even more.
Yeah, and I can imagine not having enough money to do an extensive R&D program. Well, we
Yeah.
face that quite often on our end, but I'm kind of curious, as you work through that, again, when the budget does go south and you've eaten up time, how do you recover that? And another question that popped up in my head is, are these customers bringing to you what they've done? So you have a good starting point.
So the first question was, if the budget goes south, what do we do? And so what in that case, we're overspent. And so, there's different types of way that we engage a customer. Let's say that we're on a firm fixed project and we're overspent. Most of the time, we'll know that ahead of time. And so we try to get ahead of it and we try to take a look and see, who's responsible? Do we do things that are out of the scope? Do we not have a good statement of work? I mean, everything can pretty much go back to the statement of work, which makes pretty much a lot of the budget, issues our responsibility. And so there's projects where we lose money. We've lost money on projects. Most consultant companies will tell you that there are projects that you lose money on, but if you do a good job, hopefully you didn't lose the relationship with the customer. We prefer to build long-term relationships. Money is important because we want to stay in business, but really the relationship is the most important thing. And so we will, we'll lean into the relationship and, if we have to eat it, we eat it. And I know exactly what it tastes like. It's not a wonderful flavor. Yeah. And salt or sugar doesn't help it. It's always nasty. It's like, but that's the integrity of the work. As engineers, I mean, we're held to a standard, of ethics. And when we tell somebody we're going to do something, we do it. We have to do it. And, if there's things that need to be done on a project that we didn't foresee that they're there for safety or to protect people or, then we have a responsibility to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to, protect the livelihood of the end user and the customer experience. And, but most of the times, like if we're doing these things well, we're not over budget. And then it's a matter of just really not blaming each other and not like picking each other apart. I mean, mistakes happen. I mean, design and engineering, this is a complex human activity. Very few people even know one famous engineer, right? It's because engineering is a team sport. We don't get famous by ourselves. Usually we get famous. We won't get famous at all. We work together to help the world run, help the machine run, help your Amazon delivery make it, next day or whatever. I mean, the engineer is the unsung hero. It's the person that's there, showing up and doing hard things and not always getting an awful lot of credit for it. But I think we do it because of the joy of the work. I mean, we're taking the laws of physics and we're painting them on the canvas of the universe. It's a fun thing to do. Yeah. We just try to make more money than we lose. So we get to do it as long as we can. So
yeah, long game. And even with those projects where you lose money on, I mean, that could be a huge learning opportunity too. You'll probably get a lot of lessons learned and probably pay off in the next project as well.
Oh, yeah.
I love the part that engineering is a team sport. That is 100% true.
Yeah.
Bringing in external references, internal references. So I guess that leads me to the final question. What is one final piece of advice you'd like to share civil engineers and AEC leaders looking to lead more innovative, resilient, and effective engineering teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same for all of us is, continue to dig into the fascinating world of engineering and design. And I think we have a huge opportunity to contribute as an individual just by being excellent. And I would say it's worth it to continue to pursue your career, listening to podcasts like this. And, as far as innovation goes, I think just find that part of it that gives you that joy. And, in engineering, we do a lot of things because we're supposed to. And, there's a lot of discipline in the discipline of engineering. But I would say when it comes to, your career, you got to have a little bit of fun with it. You got to find the joy in it and you got to find the magic in it. And if you can, then spend as much time there as you possibly can, because I also believe that for this particular career field, that when you find that magic and that resonance Like in engineering, you have opportunity to really provide a lot of value because it's hard to do. And if you're one of the people that love it, then go all in, because we all benefit from it.
I love it. Your passion is
Awesome.
very, very obvious.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights and expertise with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Alex.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We would love to hear your feedback, comments, or questions. To leave them, please visit structuralengineeringchannel.com. There you will find a summary of key points as well as the links to any of the resources or websites mentioned during the episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And until next time, we wish you the best in all your structural engineering endeavors.